All right, once again, recording the shadow recording, which is my good friend Liz Smith told me that she said, you're in the shadow. Why are you doing this? She made a comment. I said, well, this is part of the point. It's this sort of the obscurity. She did that in response to. She made that comment in response to a video I recorded in Albuquerque when I was recording well over a month, almost 2 months ago, in the porch there at the Hotel Albuquerque. I kind of like the sort of silhouette staging of these meditations, also in particular with these meditations on Heraclitus. That's, I think, particularly appropriate because of his nickname being the mysterious one, or the hidden one, because of both the nature of the way that he wrote the fragments and also the style, the logic of his approach to things, which is very much an influence for the way that I'm approaching the thinking here and being and learning. So continuing on then with these meditations on Heraclitus, specifically prompted by the story told by Heraclitus by Aristotle, and recounted and retold by Heidegger in the Letter on Humanism. So this is the meditation from the 4th day of May 2004, read this day, the 4th day of May 2014. Heraclitus' invitation of the strangers intends to mediate their passage into his home, and thereby intends to guide them their crossing over. The crossing over of which we now speak is another name for the leap. Above, we encountered the leap in our initial exploration of evocative speech, and here with the Heraclitus story we see depicted the unfolding of the leap, this crossing over, as the completion of the abode of learning, as the decidedness of evocative speech. Evocative speech offered by the sage from the location of steadfast openness guides this crossing, which completes the returning. The arrival of the visitors, their emergence as strangers, and their passage complete the projected destiny of the learning community. If we recall our earlier findings, we note the way this destiny issues from the evocation of the sage. The so-called drama of evocative speech, we said, evinces learning as the appearance of the not yet. Here we see this not yet emerging with the confounding of the visitors' expectations and their estrangement from the representation that had propelled their anticipation. The story shows how the encounter with the evocative is the occasion for the overcoming or the turning around of one's place in the relation to what has been, tradition. Here, tradition takes on the more immediate anticipation or willing. If learning is the possibility of leaping beyond tradition, beyond the fixity of the social script's narration that assigns us roles, then what has been overcome is precisely the fixity embedded in the anticipation of the wise man and the students that had driven the visitors along the path. The fixed image of Heraclitus and of themselves was dismantled upon their arrival. Here we encounter the drama of evocative speech as the opening up of the play of possibility. Their consternation marks the beginning of the fulfillment of their project, which is returned to them in this moment of estrangement. The building of the abode of learning gets underway the moment they are drawn away from their representations and released by the grounding attunement with the mundane and the ordinary. In the first moment of building, we identify the emergence of our inclination to create, to seek, to inquire, to go beyond. The dismantling of their anticipatory representations signifies the releasement of the will, the silencing of the juridical voice, which we said above is the occasion for the leap of trust into the mysterious relation with being. The story depicts this leap as the crossing over into what Heidegger calls the region of enchantment, a mysterious region. I'm quoting him. The story shows us why learning unfolds in this leap as a crossing over. As we said above, the leap is our response to the tidings we receive from the first questions. Here we begin to see why these tidings arrive from the more originary poetic saying. The originary poetic sayings are the ground from which the first questions emerge. They are the roots of these questions. The reception of the poetic saying marks the returning to those roots. But this returning is a releasement that involves a dismantling. In their moment of consternation, the visitors become strangers and watch with dignified calm as the temples of their certainty are deconstructed. Hermeneutics is destruction. But in the wake of this deconstruction and the releasement of the will, an invitation is offered. This invitation as incantation calls for building, a rebuilding upon the ruins. The response is decisive. Learning which unfolds in the abode, the building of this abode, is the dwelling that is a making, a path breaking that arrives with the crossing over into the source of their consternation. This is the leap into the unforeseen, mysterious region, which we have called the primeval chaos, and which appears to us in our epoch as the impossibility of the letting go of judgment, the will not to will, the response, the repose of the reposed Gelassenheit, the hermeneutical situation, itself research, questionableness. The crossing is the leap into the questioning stand, but it is precisely the essence of the visitor's project. As being estranged from their anticipation, they are returned to the roots of their endeavor. As Lao Tzu has said, quote, "This returning to their root is what we call the state of stillness, and that stillness may be called a reporting that they have fulfilled their appointed end," unquote. The leap into the company of the sage and the construction of the abode of learning identifies the crossing over as the releasement into the twofold play of being's processual unfolding into the mysterious region. This is the ultimate letting go, for it signifies our releasement to others as an entrustment. Herein emerges the occasion of reciprocation. As Jaspers has indicated with his reading of the Tao, the crossing over into the twofold play signified in the entrusting leap is, quote, a return home to the source, unquote. Again, for Jaspers, the return home is the fulfillment of the appointed end, a returning which means tranquility and destiny. Quote, "To return to its destiny is called the eternal Tao," unquote. We have said that the leap into the mystery of our relationship with being is destiny. This destination is here depicted as the return of the strangers to their project, which we now see as the completion of the abode of learning. And that's how it ends. So I have a little bit, almost 2 minutes to just make a couple commentaries. One, I just want to say that as I read this, I would have, if I could go back and edit this, and I did very little editing, and at this point I didn't edit, the word consternation causes consternation. I just, as I'm reading it, I want to change it. I want to replace it. I don't know why I was using that word so often to describe the emotional state of being, or the psychological state of being of the visitors to Heraclitus. But nevertheless, what's nice about this meditation, and what I like about it, is the way that this is one of those compressions. I talked much earlier in the meditations that I was reading the first month, because of the repetition and the working out of the language. I talked about that as compression. So if you go back and check out the earlier, some of the, probably somewhere between like 10 and 20, I make this comment about those meditations feeling like compression, which is to say that there is a lot of repetition and working out. And this is one of those where I really go back. I go back to a lot of the earlier points I made in terms of learning as a leap, and here then to underline the point of the strangers crossing over and moving into Heraclitus' space, and in that moment completing what I call the learning abode. So that's that moment of completion. So I'm going to leave it there so that I don't get timed out. This meditation, originally written 10 years ago this day, the 4th of May. Yeah, that's it.